Okay, we're going to cover two chapters today. We're going to try to cover two chapters today. If I can get this thing started. There we go. Okay, first chapter has to do with gaining further understanding. Chapter 9. Okay, before asking questions, it is important to express understanding by reflecting the feelings of your client, the content of what they've said, the meaning that they have, and summarizing what they've said. Questioning without expressing understanding may seem like grilling, and so this is one of the reasons why starting to ask questions in the beginning is probably not the best idea. You need to wait and listen to what your client has to say, and then start asking questions later, as soon as they understand that you're actually listening to them. Some people, the more you make eye contact with them, the more they assume that you're listening to them. People talk to me. I don't know why. But it may be because I'm actually listening to what they're saying. So that's what you need to do. You need to show your client that you're actually listening to what they have to say. Open-ended questions are questions that require more than one or two word answers. They invite clients to express opinions and feelings. Open-ended questions generally begin with who, what, when, or how. How do you feel about that? Tell me about are examples of the beginnings of questions. Will you tell me more about Will you tell me more about how you feel when? Will you explain more about? Tell me about who has helped you with this problem. How have other people helped you with this problem? What led you to seek help at this time? Tell me about improvements you have noticed since your last appointment. What would your life be like if this problem wasn't going on? How have others you know solved this type of problem? Who have you talked to about this problem? How did it help to talk to others about the problem? These are all open-ended questions, of course. Tell me about what it feels like to have this problem. How have you solved other problems in your life? What do you understand about the kind of help I might offer you? Tell me about what you have done to work on this problem. Closed-ended questions, those were all open-ended questions. These were open-ended questions. That's how you get them to talk, because now they have to explain. Now they have to tell you a story. This creates a narrative. Closed-ended questions are questions that can be answered with one or two words. Closed-ended questions are appropriate when the counselor is seeking specific information. How old are you? What is your address? How many other people live in your house? They give you facts and are easy to answer usually. Sometimes, if you've got a real talkative person, even a closed-ended question will create a narrative. Sometimes that happens to me uh, when I'm talking. What they're trying to do is they're trying to keep the they want to talk, and so they will answer these closed-ended questions with lots and lots and lots of words. That's kind of nice because that's what you're trying to get your client to do. You're trying to get them to talk. Skilled practitioners choose the type of question to ask based on their goals. Beginning practitioners often overuse closed-ended questions. Using closed-ended questions may imply a practitioner's need to be in control rather than work collaboratively with the client. And of course, that's not what you want. You want your client to speak. Your client is the one with the problem, not you. Your control over the situation isn't nearly as important as finding out what the client's problem is. Some clients treat open-ended questions as closed-ended questions by giving one-word responses. It is necessary for the counselor to encourage them to speak more. Tell me more about when did this problem start? What do you like about school? The answer is always recess, okay? Should always be recess or lunch. What do you do when your husband comes home drunk? Do you check in with each other at the beginning of their meetings? Do you eat dinner together? Asking more than one question at a time is confusing. In their reply, they will only answer one question, and you may potentially miss important information. Is it hard for you to both work and study? How does your family feel about this? That's two questions. Do you want answers, or which one do you answer? And that's the problem with multiple questions at the same time. Asking multiple choice questions may inhibit the client's exploration. How do you feel about that? Sad, confused, angry? However, with a client who has a limited vocabulary or isn't used to expressing their feelings in words, the occasional multiple choice question can help. Asking rapid fire questions, while this form of questioning is common in some cultures, most people feel that this style fits more with interrogation, not with creating cooperative working relationships. Attempts at showing understanding should come between questions, and of course, uh, this can be a really serious problem. Uh, it has to do with control. A lot of times, it has to do with control. And as you can see, Jackie Chan is saying, why you ask so many questions? Questions with a suggestion embedded. Sometimes questions are used to inform or persuade clients about your point of view. Don't you think it's important for you to go back to school and complete your GED? Why do you think of trying exercise more to decrease your depressed mood? You're giving them suggestions. You're giving them advice in a question form. Questions that begin with why often invite people to feel defensive. Why questions rarely invite open discussion and may be experienced as attacking. People actually often aren't aware of why they act the way that they act. Problems or challenges are important to explore. The history of the problem or challenge, the length of duration, the current changes, previously employed attempts at a solution, the severity and frequency of a problem. These are all important things to talk about. Using scaling questions can be valuable. Using a 1 to 10 scale to rate an aspect of the problem. Psychology does this. It's called the Likert scale. We do these Likert questions all the time. What aspects of the client's life are affected by the problem? The situation and the environment are also important and can sometimes give a more complete perspective on the problem. A nurturing and sustaining environment can support a client through many stressors. What life stressors has the client experienced? The number of children and other people in the house, job demands, deaths, illnesses, and or major health challenges are some of the stressors that they may incur in their lives. What life stressors has a client experienced? Current or past traumatic events in family or community, demands related to school, church involvement, volunteer activities. If the practitioner is genuine, clients feel more comfortable exploring. Being stiff, distracted, or detached does not indicate genuineness. Genuineness is indicated by being natural, sincere, authentic, candid, honest, and forthright. So, looking like a professional counselor, I don't know what the professional counselor is supposed to look like. If you get dressed up every day, then that may be off-putting to your clients. So you need to be as comfortable as you possibly can. The more comfortable you are, the more likely that your client will see you as natural, sincere, authentic, candid, honest, and forthright. So comfort is really, really important. Putting your diploma on the wall um, uh, where the client can see that's like bragging. I would suggest if you're going to hang your diploma in your office, put it behind them so that they can look at it one time, but they won't be constantly looking at it. That may be intimidating to them. You need to seem like somebody that they can talk to, and that isn't always the person with a PhD from Harvard University or whatever. Actually, Harvard Harvard is not an APA approved program. So if you have a PhD in counseling from from Harvard, you're probably a Freudian. And that is the end of chapter 9. We're going to go on to chapter 10 now. If I can find it, there we go. Chapter 10. Developing a deeper understanding, chapter 10. In ordinary conversation, people often communicate in verbal shorthand, only discussing topics in a superficial way. We rarely ask for more information. We assume that people use words the same way that we do. It is important for practitioners to listen for gaps in information. Notice points and words that are not clear. Ask about how conclusions are reached. Because unless you have a complete answer, unless you have a complete understanding of why something happened, then potentially you can't really help them. They're leaving certain things out. I understand you're feeling depressed. What is depression like for you? Good question. What is depression like for somebody? I hear that you're concerned about your children's behavior. Can you give me some examples? I notice that several people in the group are looking at the floor. Will one of you share what you are feeling? When behaviors, feelings, experiences, and the nature of the problem, challenge, or situation are clear, then changes can be more easily made. The meaning of words and body language can be explored. The basis of conclusions can be enlightening. Using questions to expand and clarify is important in families and in groups. You said your mom doesn't like you. Will you tell me what makes you think that? I don't think others care about finishing what we started. Will you tell me what is happening that makes you think that? I know my husband doesn't love me. Will you give me some examples of this behavior that leads you to feel that way? A client must be willing to explore more deeply. A client must feel comfortable and safe. It can be useful for the practitioner to ask about the client's hesitancy to share, but the practitioner should not push clients to share. Gaining further information may help in establishing a trusting relationship. Silence may be useful in encouraging clients to explore further. Silence allows time for processing. Feelings may be experienced more deeply during silent periods. The more intense the feelings, the more silent time may be needed to experience them. Some people need more silent time to process their thoughts and feelings. Let me tell you a quick story after I take a little drink here. Lemonade. I had a friend, I think I probably told you this story before. I had a friend and colleague who taught at the University of, let's see, it was Montana State University in Billings. Strangely enough, he was this guy from New York City, and he taught American Indian Studies. Now you think, now here we are in Billings, Montana. You've got the Crow Reservation, the Crow and the Cheyenne Reservation to your south and to your east, and you've got the Fort Belknap Reservation, and you've got Fort Peck, and you've got the Flathead Reservation, you've got the Blackfeet Reservation, you've got the Chippewa Cree in at Rocky Boy. You know, you're surrounded by all these reservations, and here you've got a guy from New York City who is teaching American Indian Studies. But this guy he had a PhD in American Indian Studies. He had received his PhD. He did his dissertation on the Navajo Nation, strangely enough. And so he told me this story that when he was down talking to people, he had a colleague with him who spoke Navajo, and sometimes he would go and he talked to elders. I can't remember what his dissertation was on. I ought to look that up. But so he would come down. He would travel from. I think he got his PhD from Cornell, and Cornell's in the upper New York State. Now, why he didn't study the Mohawk that live right there, or the Onondaga that live right there in New York, I have no idea. Or why didn't he go just a little bit east or west and study the Chippewa? But no, he came out to the Southwest and studied the Navajo, which is kind of curious, I guess. But anyway, so he's doing all these interviews with all these elders, and of course he's from New York City, and people from New York City and white people in general, they have a hard time with silence. Anyway, so he would ask this guy a question, and the guy would sit there for 2 or 3 minutes. And in the beginning, John had a problem with this. He would try to fill, if the guy didn't answer him right away, he would start talking. And finally, he asked one of the elders, "Why in the world does it take you so long to answer my question?" And he said, "You know, John, your questions are so interesting that I want to give you the best answer I possibly can. And that's why, and I have to think about it. And that's one of the reasons why it takes me such a long time to answer your questions." And after that, of course, he kept his mouth shut. He was really uncomfortable with silence, and he learned to listen, uh, and he learned to be patient by talking to people on the Navajo reservation, the elders on the Navajo reservation. I find that just fascinating. He doesn't. He's actually retired at this point. Lives in Billings, Montana. Some people need quiet time to think. Silence should be used purposefully. Observe your client's reaction to silence. Some may feel rejected. Some may just feel uncomfortable, like our friend from New York City who wanted to study American Indians. Each situation and each client needs to be thoughtfully considered. Now, if you think it's really weird that a guy from New York City would be teaching American Indian studies at Montana University of Montana at Northern, which was in Havre, Montana. And Havre, Montana is right in between the Fort Belknap Reservation. On one side is Fort Belknap Reservation. On the other side is it's a Rocky Boy Reservation. Chippewa Cree and the Assiniboine and Gros Ventre are they're surrounding them. To the north is Canada, and there's a reservation right on the border. So here you got all of these natives around in Havre, Montana, and the guy that taught American Indian Studies at University of Montana Northern, he was from Finland. He had a PhD in American Indian Studies. He wasn't even from the United States, and he was from Finland, and he taught. It seems kind of odd to me that all of these. The Finnish are just fascinated with American Indians, as odd as that may seem. The Germans are too. Europeans in general are fairly interested in indigenous peoples of the Americas, as weird as that may seem. To develop deeper understanding of clients, besides focusing on their challenges, you need to focus on their strengths, their resources, and their positive factors. Many clients may want their challenges to be understood before they move on to strengths. By focusing on the client's strengths, resources, and other positive factors, the practitioner can help clients feel hopeful, positive, and more able to cope. Highlighting what clients have already achieved shows that the practitioner understands and supports the efforts that they have made. When we're talking about silence, a perfect example of this is the movie Good Will Hunting. If you remember when Robin Williams' character was counseling Matt Damon's character, Matt Damon's character, for the first 5 or 6 sessions, they didn't say anything. And finally, of course, when Matt Damon's character saw that Robin Williams wasn't going to push him, he was able to he was able to open up. Of course, he didn't open up. At first, he was very defensive and he attacked Robin Williams, but of course, it didn't work. And eventually, of course, it did work. Eventually, they got into what was going on. So, questions helpful in exploring strengths and positive factors. What do you do well? What do you like about yourself? What does your family do that is fun? What are some good things about this organization? Tell me about friends who have helped you in the past. What have you done that you are proud of? Empowerment is achieved when clients know that they have the knowledge, skills, competencies, and resources to make decisions, solve problems, and achieve goals. As people use their strengths and resources to face and deal with problems and challenges, they gain confidence. One of the jobs that I've had in my life, I've had lots and lots of jobs. Um, of course, you have to do it a couple times before you feel confident that you're not making a mistake, that you're not going to trip over your own feet or whatever. But one of the jobs that I had was, wait a second, I need to let the dog out. Sorry. I'm in my office and my wife's watching her football game. Anyway, one of the jobs I had was drawing blood. And of course, drawing blood is not easy. If you've ever had your blood drawn or drawn blood yourself, you can see that there's a bevel of the needle. The needle has to be inside the vein to draw the blood out in order to get the blood out. Well, that takes a lot of hand steadiness. It also takes a good eye so that you know how far to push the needle in. You need to stabilize it so that you can draw blood. You have to change tubes and you have to be able to stabilize it. Anyway, so that's not the easiest thing in the world, and it's not an automatic thing. Once upon a time, or when I first started drawing blood, it was in the service. And the easiest way to do it is with a syringe because it's just a constant pressure. Put the needle in the vein, and you pull out as much blood as you need. But we were limited. It was too expensive to use. We were supposed to use vacutainers. They're the ones that suck the blood up automatically. But the difficulty with using a vacutainer is that you have to change tubes. And so you have to pull one out, which can move the needle, and you have to push one in, which can once again move the needle, and you can of course go through the vein or pull out of the vein if you have any problems. Anyway, so when I first started learning to draw blood, it was easiest to draw blood with a syringe because it was just a constant pressure. You didn't have to worry about going in it or out of the vein. But of course, as I said, they limited the number of syringes that we could use. They didn't care if we used syringes as long as we didn't use them very often. And of course, the single draws were easy. But when you had to change tubes, in the beginning, you had to think about it. And also, there was another problem that I won't even go into. In the beginning, the vacutainer didn't have a sleeve on it. Whoops, I'm sorry. Didn't have a sleeve on it. So you had to push the bevel up against the roof of the vein so that so the vein wouldn't, or the blood wouldn't start leaking out, and then you had to pull it out and put in another one without, and keeping the bevel up against the roof of the vein. Anyway, eventually they developed sleeves. Now it's a lot easier to do all these things. Anyway, so you can imagine how many people do you butcher before you figure it out? And the answer was not very many. As a matter of fact, I was pretty good from the beginning because I have real steady. I'm really steady, and as I'm telling you this, I'm holding my hand out, and it's not moving even a little bit. And here I am, 70 years old. A lot of people as they get older, they get tremors or whatever. My mother was that way. She had a really steady hand. Even into her 90s, she was able to start. She was a nurse, and she was able to start IVs that other people wouldn't even attempt. Anyway, she was really good. So connecting strengths with empowerment. Tell me about something you completed that seemed. Anyway, I guess my point was that I developed confidence from the challenge. Real easy. A lot of people who are lab techs, they try to dodge having to draw blood because they don't like doing it. They're not very good at it. Um, but I was really good at it to the extent that I was called in sometimes when I was off. to draw blood that nobody else could get. And, I just became really good at it. I still am pretty good at it. Last time I drew blood, I did okay. I did really good, okay? I was drawing blood from people that nobody else would even attempt. This was up in Montana. We had there were people there called Hutterites. It's a religious group. Anyway, they're intermarried and they've got these really horrible veins. They're notorious for these really bad veins. You look at their arms and you can't see any blue because it's just all the veins are embedded. Anyway, I was able to draw blood from the Hutterites. So tell me about something something you completed that seemed difficult. What skills have helped you solve previous challenges? How have you resolved previous challenges? After reflecting the client's strengths, the practitioner can invite the client to catalog other instances when they have actively participated in solving problems. This will enhance their confidence and sense of empowerment. Tell me about something that you completed that seemed difficult. Of the things you have already done to resolve this problem, tell me about what has worked well, even for a brief period of time. I have no idea why I have that picture. That's one of the Hemsworths, and I don't know who that lady is. She's awfully pale. That's probably Johansson, Scarlett Johansson. What are some of the things you learned from working with past challenges? He wasn't really trying to knock her out, I don't think. Well, maybe he was. What are some of the things that you learned from working with past challenges? What skills helped you solve past challenges? How have you resolved previous challenges? Respect can be demonstrated by expressing understanding and validating the client's story, by showing interest in the client's thoughts and feelings, wants, needs, and goals, by creating and maintaining a collaborative environment, by asking about strengths, resources, potential, and capacities, by identifying strengths. Here's the deal, guys. The reality is, if you do not respect your clients, then you're not going to be able to do a good job with them. You're not going to be able to do it. You're not going to be able to help them at all. So the reality is, if you don't respect them, if there's something about them that you don't like, then you need to pass them on to somebody else. And maybe you need to find another job. Counseling is a job that you can only do if you like your clients. And, well, like isn't the right word. You need to respect your clients. So if you've got a clan thing that your clan doesn't like this clan, or because they're this clan, they're okay. Anyway, if you have any of these problems, you need to think about this, because the only way you can help people is by knowing who they are and accepting who they are. You need to respect your clients. And if you don't respect your clients, then you're in the wrong game. With all the trained professionals in this group, I am confident that we can find a way to resolve this, demonstrating respect. You've tried to solve this problem. Will you tell me about other things that you have considered that haven't used yet? You seem quite angry about how your boss has been behaving. It must be a tough place to work. How do you think I might help you? When you resolve this problem, what are some things that will be different in your family? 4 thumbs up. You have told me about the many ways that have worked on this challenge that you have worked. Many of the ways you have worked on this challenge. Who else in the agency might be willing to work with us to resolve the problem? As I understand it, you have done a lot of thinking about the problems this organization is facing. You have talked to a number of people about your understanding of the problem and have decided to commit time and energy to resolving this problem. You have taken some important steps in problem solving, demonstrating respect. And that is the end of the chapter. And I'm sorry that I told you so many stories, but next week we will tackle chapter 11. Yes, we'll tackle chapter 11. So stay safe, be good, and I'll talk to you next week.